I need some traction.
Hey, Traction fam, our guest today is a tech trailblazer who's gone from rocking the venture capital scene at Sequoia for 6 years to spearheading BigPanda, a game-changing AIOps platform. He steered the company to snag an eye-popping $337 million in funding. And he's got heavyweights like PayPal and Kaiser Permanente and Blizzard on speed dial. Beyond the boardroom, he spills the beans on scaling, funding acrobatics, and the art of scoring A-list customers. Welcome to Traction, Assaf. How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. I am super excited about your journey going from an investor to an entrepreneur, all the learnings, because, you know, in the last couple of years, investors are starting to get a bad rap. Hey, especially with everything that's happened, right? A lot of money went into startups that were overvalued. The valuation fell and the advice went from grow at all costs to now grow profitably. But you've bridged this gap. You've gone from being the investor to being an entrepreneur. So let's start there. How or why did you decide to make the leap from being an investor? Because being an investor at Sequoia, especially, I'm sure is great money. Why go on this deep end?
Sure. You know, it's not about the money. It's about the growth mentality, the challenge. You know, I'd say for me, you know, in my high school, in my 20s, I was never hungry. I was, you know, always a smart kid. In my 20s, I did well, but I never really applied myself. And then, you know, I got a job at Sequoia, and it was a turning point in kind of my career because I had the privilege of working with these amazing entrepreneurs who had vision, who, you know, had courage, had hunger. And I said to myself, like, you know, I saw some succeed wildly, some did not, but all of them came and gave it 100%. And I said to myself, I like what they're doing and I want to give that a shot. And I don't think these people are, you know, terribly smarter than I am. They're just a hell of a lot more courageous and a hell of a lot hungrier than I am. And that's what really made the shift for me of, you know, I want to be in the action. I want to be turning an idea into a reality and putting a dent in the universe. And so, you know, it wasn't about the money. It was about the challenge and the growth.
You know, I talk to so many entrepreneurs, successful ones, unsuccessful ones, and that is a common trait. It's not the money, it's the impact. It's what can I change? They're either frustrated by the status quo, want to prove the naysayers wrong, or there's something that's just this burning desire. Now, having the desire to build a company is one thing, but having an idea that you're passionate about, that you want to focus on over everything else for the next 5, 10, 15 years is different. How did you find that?
Completely by happenstance. We actually started a company called Big Panda that was in a very different direction. You know, I knew I wanted to start a company. I had an idea together with my technology co-founder in the advertising technology space. How do you take lots and lots of data in social media and turn that into shopping intent? This was 10 years ago when, you know, things were new. And we started down that path and actually took seed funding from Sequoia Capital down that path. And after a year, we realized, hey, you know, advertising technology is not where we want to be. But while we were down that path for a year, we had a problem that we had to solve for ourselves that was the inception of what Big Panda is today. And the problem was, you know, when you're doing advertising technology, you have to do web scale infrastructure. Hundreds of millions of people are surfing the internet concurrently. They want things to work really, really quickly. So we had to build high performance infrastructure. And we did it with the modern cloud native stack. So lots of cloud, lots of SaaS, lots of open source. And when we had issues with performance and latency, took us forever to find and fix, you know, which of these 17 different silos of our stack was there a problem. So we had to hack together some software for ourselves to be able to find and fix problems faster. And we kind of fell in love with that problem. We said, hey, here's a problem we were solving for ourselves, and we're moving to the cloud using cloud native environments just like everyone else is. Maybe everyone else has this problem. And so the inception of the idea really came out of scratching our own itch or solving our own problem. This wasn't, hey, we sat in the laboratory whiteboarding ideas. This was, hey, here's a problem we have. We solved it for ourselves. And then we say, let's go solve that for everyone else.
That's how some of the greatest companies start, right? Because building a company is part data and part love or passion. And if you just go alongside data, it's hard to understand the emotion behind the problem because you're not facing it, you're not experiencing it. And a lot of what we buy, what humans buy, and until we live in a world where humans are buying from humans, emotion will be a huge part of it. So I like that story. Now, were there any learnings that you experienced as an investor funding many, many companies over the years you were at Sequoia that you brought to the journey of building a startup? And I know it's not the same being an investor and then doing a startup, but you must have had some key crucial learnings. I like the Mike Tyson quote also, which says that, you know, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. So,
Right.
but maybe you had some learnings from your experience working alongside funding companies.
There's a million learnings, and it's kind of like, I'll go on a random tangent. We all grow up saying we're never going to be like our parents. We're going to be just like our parents. We're going to be, nothing like our parents. And then we have kids, and then you turn out, that's when all this knowledge and all this like pattern recognition that you got from your parents comes up, and you end up, once you have 3 kids, just like your parents. I'd say same thing here. There's a lot of things I learned as a venture capitalist, seeing the cycles of other people. And they weren't all those learnings didn't come out in the first year of the company. Those learnings continue to come out. So some of the ones in the early years were, hey, till you find product market fit, make sure you're really smart about your burn. Make sure you're doing things in a very lean way, and make sure you're focused on, it's not about sales and growth at the first the first chapter. It's around finding that product market fit. That's an art. Everything else is a science. And so that's a big one.
Definitely.
I've definitely seen enough cycles to know those first few handful of employees, that's a very important decision, because those people will define the culture of your company for the rest of time. And so you have to be really, really thoughtful about who are those first 5 to 7 people, because they're going to bring their friends, and those are people are going to bring your friends. And before you know it, you're 100 people. You've got a culture, you've got an operating rhythm, and a lot of it was set from that beginning trajectory.
Now, how,
Yeah.
how big is Big Panda today?
Today we're about 300 people.
Wow. And when did you start the company?
About 11 years ago.
Wow. So that's a long journey. Now, I asked that because you've mentioned people a couple of times. As you were starting out from the early days to now scale, who are the key hires you made along the way that were pivotal to this journey?
There's so many. There's so many. It depends on where you are. And we started off, with a very tech-heavy group of individuals, because we were, building the initial platform. And me and my co-founder were the folks to sell the first $3-4 million worth of product. Because at that point, the journey to $3 million is not about generating revenue. It's about generating product market fit. And, that's a really good thing for the founders to be doing by themselves, because there's so much iteration in that path to, 0 to 3. But then it's, hey, okay, we've got product market fit. Now it's time to start putting together a go-to-market machine. And so those initial hires around your first marketing hire, your first sales hire, your first customer success hire, so critical, so very critical. And then you get to a certain point of scale where it's, hey, we need to be more thoughtful about our culture. We need to be more thoughtful about performance management. We need to be more thoughtful about a recruiting machine. And so, that chief, that head of people, that CHRO, incredibly essential hire. And so, along those paths, those executives that you can bring that can help you develop new muscles, you don't need all of those in day one, but you certainly need those along the way. And then you also have to be thoughtful about, the executive that gets you from 5 to 20. Very different skill set from the executive that's going to get you from 50 to 500. And, the CHRO that you need when you're 100 people is very different from when you need when you're 300 or 500 people. And part of the job of a CEO is to make sure you have the right leaders at the right time. And that's a very hard thing and takes a lot of, constant introspection.
I love that. And, I've experienced that myself. So I wanted to ask, what were those key inflection points? I guess the first one is product market fit. You pivoted to the AIOps platform. At what point did you know you had product market fit?
It took us a while. We launched the product in 2015. And the first, I'd say 18 months was not great. The market was, it didn't take off like wildfire. And, I know now we were in the right place at the wrong time. And so we come to customers, and a lot of our value prop is we come to large enterprises who are moving to the cloud. They're modernizing their approach to IT. So they're doing cloud, they're doing microservices, they're doing open source, they're doing CI/CD, all these new ways of that we call cloud native that lets companies be way more agile in the product development, move faster. And we saw that coming. But in 2015, when we came to enterprises and sold our platform, what we heard was, hey, we know cloud is coming. We're experimenting with cloud, but we haven't moved our mission critical assets there. We haven't really embraced cloud and cloud native. And so the problem that you're solving for us is a future problem. And only in 2017 did you see that kind of tipping point in the overall market where enterprise adoption of cloud moved from I'm experimenting with cloud to no, I'm really taking cloud seriously. I'm really putting a lot of our mission critical assets. And so in 2017 was when some big companies came and said, hey, we've got this problem. We want to partner with you. And that's when the market really, really took off. Those first few years were hard because you don't know, those 18 months, 2 years, you don't know, hey, is this a timing issue and the market's just not there? Or do I have the wrong product? Or am I just failing? And so you have to have, as a CEO, a lot of conviction and very thick skin to be able to go through those periods, before you have product market fit. It's quite a roller coaster.
How long did it take you, considering the pivot and everything else?
To get to product market fit, it probably, after we pivoted and said, hey, we want to do, AIOps, it probably took us, I'd say, a year of core development of the platform. Then we launched it. Then probably another 18 months. It was a good 2.5-year journey to product market fit. And, that's tough emotionally. Like you got to be tough.
It is definitely. I mean, some of us have been there and understand the emotional roller coaster it is. But I love what you said. You and your co-founder sold the first 3 or 4 million. And that is very commendable. In the last week, I've talked to 3 founder friends who've burned through tens of millions of dollars building tech and now are on the brink of having to potentially shut down because they don't have any customers. It's easier to build product in 2023. It's harder to get customers. How did you make that leap? Did you always have the ability to sell?
No, I never saw myself. I'm a reasonably communicative guy. You just do it. You do it because you have no choice. So you just got to hustle. And, those first few million was, today we have a sales machine, we've got marketing, we've got a, very well built out pipeline, and it's got stages. But back then we just had hustle. So I would meet with anyone I could, investors, executives at large companies, friends, family, and was just, hustling for introductions for people in CIOs and people in operations and engineering. And, you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince.
Certainly. And you started with the enterprise. I guess that's a big leap too, isn't it? Like, it's
Yeah.
hard to sell enterprise. You haven't sold, you never saw yourself as a salesperson, and now all of a sudden you're in the deep end selling to a long sales cycle enterprise. That would have been
Yeah.
emotionally challenging in and of itself.
Well, that was part of the journey to product market fit. When we started selling at first, we didn't know, are we selling to enterprises, or are we selling to the mid-market, or are we selling to Silicon Valley startups? We didn't know. And like I said, in 2017, the market really started waking up. And when we exited 2017 and started looking at our customers and saying, okay, well, we have a lot of different kinds of customers. We have customers that are paying us, big checks. We have customers that are paying us very, very small checks. I like the customers that are paying us.
What are the extremes? What are the extremes? What is the biggest check and what is the smallest check?
Well, now it's very different. Now it's, typical enterprise deal can be in the hundreds of thousands or in the millions of dollars in terms of ARR. But back in the day, we also had customers paying us $5,000, $10,000 in ARR because we didn't know what end of the spectrum we were selling to. We were just going fishing. And then at the end of 2017, we said, hey, we have a handful of customers paying us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, a handful of customers are paying us $5,000, $10,000. I like the customers that have paying us a lot more money and have a lot more pain. And then you started thinking, okay, well, what do those customers have in common? And what they had in common was they were large enterprises that had the pain of very large scale, drowning in data, drowning in fragmentation, and we were bringing them a ton of value. And so towards the end of 2017, we said, hey, we like this cohort of customers, let's go double down on that. And that was part of the journey of product market fit. Because when you're selling to an enterprise, it's not just enough to have the core engine that does the innovation that people need. It has to have an enterprise level, car around the engine, and it's got to have scale, it's got to have security, and it's got to have all sorts of things that an enterprise needs from a mission critical platform. And so it took us a while to build that again, to build that around our core innovation. And an enterprise also needs a very specific go-to-market motion. It needs sellers that know how to sell to an enterprise. It needs marketing that know how to market. And so part of the path to product market fit is not just, does my core innovation solve a problem, but can I build a car around that engine that an enterprise wants? Can I build a company around that offering that services an enterprise market? So that didn't come from day one. That came from the path to product market fit.
Certainly. I mean, that informed your messaging, your ideal customer profile, and your go-to-market motion. What does that go-to-market motion look like from two guys selling and trying to figure it out to how has it evolved today?
It hasn't changed dramatically, I'd say, since in the last few years. Once we said, hey, enterprise is the market, then you want to bring the initial enterprise machine. So you want to bring enterprise sellers, enterprise sales leaders that can build that, enterprise marketing. At a certain point, you need enterprise level post sales, and you want to be able to, at a small scale, when your revenue is still small, make sure you're building that assembly line on a really, really solid foundation. And it's got repeatability, and it's got efficiency, and it's got scalability. And then as, the years go by, you add and add and add. And, obviously it's much more complex. The whole go-to-market machine, customer support machine, it's much more complex at $200 million than it is at $10 million. You go from playing checkers to playing three-dimensional chess. But at the end of the day, it's still focused on servicing the enterprise market.
Now, going from product market fit or beyond product market fit to today, what were some other key inflection points in your growth that stand out?
It's a few. So, it's not necessarily around technical sales or, developing the product. A big one for me is culture. Funny enough, values. We got to a certain point where, when I started the company, I was pretty skeptical about the concept of values. I'd always thought of, values as some corporate BS, bunch of words that people put on a poster, and everyone else takes cynically. And we got to a certain point when we were like, I don't know, 100, 150 people, where our performance as a company was not as good as I wanted it to be. And when we started digging, I kind of realized, hey, we've got, we're at a scale where, I can't interview everyone anymore. And I can't make sure that we're hiring people that, really, really fit our culture because it's amorphous. And you have multiple offices and people hiring their friends. And we had, too many people that just weren't a good fit. And so our, VP of HR said to me, hey, Assaf, I think it's time we get more serious around our values and really write down, what kind of people do we want to hire? How do we expect our people to act with each other and with customers? And so we went on kind of a long journey on that and came at values from a perspective of, hey, values is not a recipe about how to be a good human being. Values is a recipe for what kind of behavior do we want our team members to exhibit to maximize the chances that we will succeed. When you're in a startup, there's so many decisions you have to make every day. And there's imperfect information and tight timelines. And if you get your values right, hopefully they can, when employees or anyone's at a fork in the road and the decision's unclear which way to go, our values can get you towards the right decision most of the time. They don't guarantee success, but they maximize the chances of success. And so we built our values, spent a lot of time thinking about, what are the values that we want our team to exhibit. Took it very seriously. And it's amazing. Once we started getting serious about values and started bringing it into the kind of people we hire, the kind of people we promote, the kind of people we let go of, our business just got better. Our growth rates got better, our customer retention got better, our R&D velocity got better. And so that was one of the real kind of hard milestones. I know it sounds soft, but it was actually a real difference maker in our performance as a business.
I recently wrote a book from Grassroots to Greatness. It became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, but 13 Rules to Build Iconic Brands with the Power of People and Community. But in doing my research, I talked to hundreds of people, thousands of people actually, and looked at hundreds of companies. And one of the key things was that great companies are built on great alignment around values, your purpose. And it's not what you write on the wall, but how you behave is what matters. And if your hiring and firing and promotions are not according to your values, then people just think what you write on the wall is lip service. So I like what you said there. It truly resonates, and it separates the most successful companies from the ones that are not or that don't endure. But it's really hard to think about these things, rightfully, like you said, right? When you're poor and you're trying to survive, you can't think about values. You don't oftentimes, but that is what scales eventually. Are there some tactical tips you can suggest in terms of defining your values and then making sure people act according to them? Maybe one or two things that you did to make sure people embody them when you're not in the room, because that's what's important, is how do people behave when you're not in the room?
Yeah, amen. You got to choose the right values. That starts there. And you want to do, you don't want the values to be some aspirational thing that you think people should do. You want it to be a real expression of where your team really is and, how they really act and what are the things that are unique to your company. That's the easy part. And the hard part is, how do you make them real? And you make them real by a number of things. You make them real. It starts with the person in the mirror. And if you're living the values, if you're talking about the values, and if you're talking about tough decisions, and you say to them, okay, well, turn to our values, and how do our values inform the decisions we're making? And if you're talking about that, especially in closed rooms with your own executives, as opposed to your check the values at the door, that makes them real. So if you as a CEO and the founder, and if your executives are really living it, that goes a long way. Then you want to celebrate your values. You want to celebrate when people, reinforce those values. You want to put them into, when you're doing performance reviews, when you're doing hiring, you want to make sure your values are part of those processes. And so just like everything else, if you are studying a foreign language and you speak it all the time, you're going to get better at it. If you only speak it once every 2 years, you're going to get really rusty. And so if you imbue your values into your day-to-day, you're going to live them. If you whip them out and talk about them, at your corporate kickoff once a year, then they're going to be lip service, and they're going to be a source of cynicism.
Certainly. Now, as you've been on this journey, 11 years is a long time. And that's how long I even built my company. But
yeah,
what was the lowest point, or maybe a very tough decision you made that didn't pan out as you expected? And how did you navigate through it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there have been plenty of low points, plenty of near-death experiences. For me, I remember, we released our product in 2015. Right before we released our product, a large company in our ecosystem offered to buy our company. I would have made a lot of money. We had no sales at the time, and I had 2 young kids and another one on the way. And my wife said, like, "Hey, man, go sell this company." It was a life-changing amount of money, and help me raise the kids. And we just, me and a co-founder decided not to, because we really believed in the potential of this company to do something amazing in the market. And so we walked away, and we were feeling very macho about ourselves, that we walked away, we were brave, we're going to go change the world, and let's go release this offering, and it's going to be amazing. And we did. And then crickets for 2 years. And, it was a lot of times when I'm thinking to myself, what was I thinking? In the what is it, the pit of despair, a year into launching the market and the product in crickets. And I'm thinking, like, why didn't I sell this company? What was I thinking? But you just got to keep going. You got to believe in the vision.
I hope you don't regret it now.
I don't regret it in the least bit. If I look at the growth that I've had, as an executive, as an entrepreneur, versus where, I could have sold the company 8 years ago, I'm a different person. And all of it was earned the hard way. None of it came easy. Nothing about where we at, not one quarter of it was a cakewalk. Every single part of it was a marathon where you're pushing harder and harder. But I've grown so much, and had the ability to, had the privilege to work with amazing executives that I've learned from, amazing customers that I've learned from, and I'm just a different person than I was 8 years ago. And it's not about money. You don't do this for money. Like, you can earn great money going to work at Google or Facebook, and it's, much safer and less binary. You do it for 100%. Growth.
You do it for growth. You do it for impact. I like how you said it. Now, through all these challenges, what is your approach to surviving, or rather adapting to market changes, internal challenges, low points? How do you keep calm and navigate? Do you have a personal coach? Do you have, do you work out? Like, what is your regime to stay in peak performance and not mentally crash?
Like, for me, the hard part, and it's probably for a lot of entrepreneurs, is when things get really stressful, and they're always very stressful, you can't turn it off. You have a day at work, and then you come home and you're hanging out with your kids, and you're still, compartmentalize the stress and the ideas. And so like you got to be able to, for me, exercise is a big one. Uh Trying, like what I do is, I've got a kind of thing on my front door, just a little piece of art that kind of reminds me, hey, when I walk through this front door, try to be present for your wife, try to be present for your kids, like try to mentally make that shift. It's really hard, but having that kind of trigger I find really helps. um, that's another one. I'm also part of this group of other CEOs where we meet once a quarter to talk about, what's going on in our companies. And that's also very helpful because being a CEO is a very lonely job, very, very lonely job. And if you can kind of have a peer group that you can talk to and share ideas and commiserate on struggles, that's just very mentally and emotionally helpful as well. But it's a hard job. And you've been doing it. Like it's lonely, it's stressful, it's not a cakewalk.
All of the things you said, what's funny is I put the business first over everything else. When we sold half the company, I'd never seen money. And then I saw some money. And immediately after that, I was hospitalized for COVID pneumonia, bilateral. And
Oh my
I
God.
was on oxygen, almost died. And then life lost its meaning for me because I soon after departed the day-to-day of the company and then started to think that, hey, I put the company first and this became my identity. And now I barely have a relationship with my family, but I lost the tribe that I thought was mine as well. And I was at loggerheads. And I think a lot of what you said is what everyone should do. Have a community that you surround yourself with of positive people that you can talk through situations with. Have triggers that, when you go through the door, you're leaving it behind and you're not bringing that home, and you're spending quality time with your family and exercise. Those three things actually changed my life. I wish I had advice like that years ago when I was going through this journey. Now to shift gears a little bit, AI
I
trends.
do
You've
want
been
to I do
doing,
want to touch that though. It
yeah,
can
yeah,
be
please.
so all encompassing. When you're an entrepreneur, like you said before, so much of your identity is wrapped up in this company that if you're not, really intentional about it, like it could really take over. And that happens to a lot of my friends. Like it happens to me at times too. You have to kind of check yourself and say, like, I need balance. You're not going to make it without balance.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. If you try to sprint a marathon, you'll burn out or die. And
Yeah.
I have a second
Yeah.
lease in life, so I completely understand. Now, shifting gears to what you've been doing that's cool today, but you've been doing it for a long time, AI,
Yeah.
and the trends around it. A lot of
Yeah.
conversation in the space. What are your predictions? What trends should companies have their eye on to ensure they're not left behind?
I'd say two things. So one is for us, kind of like we've been doing AI for a long time, but Gen AI in the last 18 months has really, in many ways, changed the game, because it means that, you don't need necessarily to have a small army of very expensive data scientists to produce AI. And those data scientists can oftentimes need, long lead cycles to come up with new types of AI. And they're oftentimes, pretty far removed from your customers and their reality. And, they're data scientists. They're not necessarily super empathetic with your customers. And what Gen AI has meant is you can bring people that are technical enough to do prompt engineering and technical enough to leverage Gen AI, but that's a much different persona. And so we find that we can be, in our case, we're doing AIOps. Our customers are DevOps and SREs and folks in IT ops, folks that are technical enough to use Gen AI. And so we found that we can do two things. We can bring people that have much deeper customer empathy and are really knowledgeable about the pain that our customers are going through, and then can leverage AI to help solve that pain. So it's not AI for the sake of having AI. AI is just a tool to solve really juicy problems for our customers. And so it lets us bring the people that understand what really are those juicy problems versus people that are really good at AI. That's a really, really big difference, both in the quality of the output of our productization and in the velocity. And so for customers, for other companies, take that very seriously. It's not lip service. Like really, and try to couple people that have deep, deep customer empathy and put those people at the forefront of creating your AI capabilities.
How is Big Panda positioning itself in this landscape? What do you have coming out in terms of product, and how do you talk about Gen AI in the grand scheme of your product strategy?
Yeah. So for us, we have to have two great things, two really, really important. We have to do two things really, really well to bring value to our customers. We have to have really great data, and then we have to have really, really great AI that makes sense of that data. And so for us, where the future holds is using AI to do both of those things. So using, what we come into enterprises and say, hey, you have this fragmented IT stack with lots of clouds and lots of microservices and lots of observability tools, lots of moving parts. And so it's the Tower of Babel. You have 257 different tools speaking French and Chinese and Italian and Japanese. How do you use AI to normalize all that data and turn it into one kind of consistent, unified data fabric, if you will? And then where we're really focused right now is once we have that great data, how do we use AI to move the needle in terms of intelligence? So what we do is we come and say, we automate IT operations. So the world is spending something like $200 billion in salaries for engineers whose job it is to keep digital infrastructure running. So when you go to a bank or you go to a large airline and you want to do a digital transaction, there's lots of servers and networks and storage devices and applications, lots of moving parts that underline those digital services. And when those things break, it's the job of those engineers to find and fix those problems before it affects consumers. Now, the problem is, as enterprises move to the cloud, there's a lot more moving parts, and they're moving faster, they're breaking faster. That's creating a tsunami of data. It's overwhelming the ability of our customers to do their job. And so our mission is to help those teams keep the digital world running. And so the way we do that is by using AI to turn all that kind of tsunami of machine data, turning that into insights. And so where we're focused on is really moving the needle on bringing more insights into what's happening in their tech stack, predictive insights, root cause insights, and eventually our view is how do we help you fully automate how you keep that data center running, how you keep your clouds running.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
So a rough analogy, think of a kind of autonomous car. Think of a Tesla. I have a Tesla. Mm-hmm. It's got stage 3 autonomy. So I have to take it to the highway, and then I can turn on the autopilot and let go of the wheel. But I'm not going to take it off-roading, and I'm not going to drive it autonomously in a hailstorm. But every day, it's getting more and more and more autonomous. That's kind of how we're thinking about the data center operations is we're coming to a large bank and say, hey, we're going to automate 30% of your workflow, then 35%, then 40%, with an ultimate view of, hey, we're going to help you achieve a fully autonomous operations.
And is that yielding more revenue for you? What is the revenue model for Big Panda?
It's a great question. So we are a consumption-based revenue model. And our philosophy is we only want to get paid when we're delivering value to our customers. So our revenue model is such that if we've taken all this, machine data and turned it into insight, that's free. But if you've actually taken action on that insight, you use that insight to actually fix something faster, automate how you fix that thing, generate an actionable insight, that's when you pay. And we found that's a really, really good exchange of value.
I love that. Our model is the same. We get paid when you get value, and the more value you get, the more we get paid. That's why I asked. The reason why I asked that is you're creating more and more value. Are you upselling them something, or it's just a function of it drives more usage the more improvements you make in way of AI, adding generative AI, and so on?
Both. So when you think of an land and expand, there's kind of three avenues where you can upsell. One is drive more usage, just add value and drive more and more usage. Two is sell more functions, sell more features. So, hey, I'm selling you, module number one. I can also sell you module number 2 and 3. And then there's also, if you're penetrating a certain business unit within a large enterprise, well, there's lots of other business units that you can go and partner with. And all three of those are very viable for us.
Now, no conversation with you is over without fundraising advice for founders. Okay. Given Sequoia raised 300 plus million in funding, I think my audience would be very unhappy if I didn't ask you some fundraising tips. So what are some key strategies or insights that founders should keep in mind when seeking funding, especially in market conditions like this?
I mean, look, it's a nuanced answer, and it's very different from a seed stage company to a late stage company to a mid stage company. And so there's no simple tips that, if you're a seed stage company, make sure you have really good co-founders, make sure you're addressing a very large market, and make sure that you are looking for the right amount of money that's going to get you to a reasonable milestone. There's no need to raise $20 million today for a seed stage funding. That's too much money, too much dilution. On the other hand, if you're only raising $200,000 and that money is not going to get you to some meaningful milestone, well, you're just wasting your time. If you're talking about late stage, that's much less about selling the dream. That's much more about selling results. And there, it's a tough environment right now. Multiples in the public market have definitely come down. The expectation of investors, 2 years ago, the three metrics that mattered were growth, growth, and growth. Now it's growth and efficiency, or it's efficiency and then growth. And so you've got to actually have an efficient machine whose fundamental, unit economics are such that you can build a sustainable company in the long term. And so, there's no secrets there. That's what investors want to see.
Any common pitfalls or misconceptions you see amongst founders in the fundraising process? Maybe when you were at Sequoia, how would someone win the meeting with you and then win the deal with you? Like, what would it take?
Again, this is for early stage. What does it take? It takes being an exceptional founder. It takes being someone who's really hungry, really insightful, someone who, I would think is mentally strong, because as we've just talked over the last hour, this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is not, how do I get to product market fit? It's, how do I get to product market fit as stage one? But then there's stage 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And so, I was never of the mind like there's this one simple trick that's going to solve all your fundraising problems. You got to have a good, I don't know. I think about it very differently. I don't think that you need to optimize for raising money. And it's not about, for me, how do I raise money for an investor? It's much more around, how do I find a great partner? And how do I make sure, like when you're getting investors, especially if they're sitting on your board, that is a marriage. And, if you raised money from someone that 2 years down the line, you don't want to be working with, you're a very unhappy marriage. And so why did you raise money from that person in the first place? So my advice to founders is less around, how to optimize, how to get the fundraise. And that's important, but more around do your due diligence around, is this someone I want to be married with on this journey for the next 5 to 10 years? And how is this person, going to act in good times, but much more importantly, how are they going to act in difficult times? Are they going to freak out and, try to force you to make a 90-degree turn in your business? Or are they going to be a thought partner? Are they going to understand that there's no easy answers?
Definitely. Now, what do you recommend to startup founders to build relationships with investors, do's or don'ts, must have kind of thing, right? Because as investors, you're probably getting thousands of people DMing you on LinkedIn, sending you cold emails. How do you decide to take that first meeting? Is it via warm introduction, some relationship? How does a founder navigate this?
The best is try to create long-standing relationships of trust with these people before you need to come up to them and ask for investments. Because the wrong way to do it, and God knows it happened a lot during the heyday 2 or 3 years ago, where people were making multi-million-dollar investment decisions over the weekend. That's a very poor way of forming a partnership, because it's very easy to say, yeah, I'm going to invest $5 million in you over the weekend. But that's not what people are doing. What people are doing is saying, hey, I'm going to join you on this journey for the next 5 to 10 years. And doing that over a weekend is silly for both sides. And so the sooner you can invest in building relationships of trust with potential investors, they'll be more armed to make decisions. And more importantly, you'll be more armed to make decisions. Barring that, absolutely warm introductions from your network. Nothing wrong with cold calling if that's what you need to do. Lord knows I've done it. It's not ideal, but it works.
Can you share maybe anecdotes or examples of founders you've known, seen, or funded that have done it the right way? Kind of building relationships or sort of leveraging the network. Like, what are some tips from what you've seen?
I think the right way is just be brutally honest about what's going, how things are going. Like, don't try to put rose-colored glasses on everything, because, any investor worth their salt, especially if they've been an entrepreneur before, knows that this is a roller coaster, and they're not looking for someone to blow sunshine up their ass. They're looking for someone who can navigate in the real world. And to the extent that you can be real and talk real and acknowledge challenges and how you overcome challenges, like, that's what I'm looking for in entrepreneurs. Not someone who's a great marketer, but someone who's can drive this bus in sunshine and in the rain.
A lot of what happens is, again, alignment, right? And I think when founders seek advice on VCs, a lot of the advice they get is around winning the deal, showing the big vision, showing the massive TAM, how it's going to be a $10 billion company. And they put so much emphasis on that they forget that after you win, the real work starts after you have the money in your bank, and people can see through it after the first board meeting. You may have won the pitch, but do you really want to go on this journey? And if you've just lied your way through, then your actions will speak it louder than the words you chose to win the deal.
Exactly. It's the same way I think about recruiting executives. I do not come and recruit executives by telling them, hey, here's everything that's awesome and that's it. No, I try to be very upfront about, hey, here's what's going really well. Here's where we have challenges, because I want executives who are energized by the challenge. Same thing with investors. I don't want to come and tell them a ball of, nice stories, and then they come to the first board meeting and they're saying, what the hell? I want to build healthy long-term partnerships.
Certainly. Now, as we close out here, anything else you want to add to the conversation?
No, it's been a pleasure. I love that you've done this before, that you've been in this journey, and the fun and the emotion and the roller coaster that it is. It's It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Awesome. Likewise, this was great, great fun.
I need some traction.